Hello, and welcome to the Omnex webinar, Changes to Medical Device Legislation, Adopting ISO 13485 to 2 CFR 820. Today's webinar is being presented by Michael Checketts. Michael Checketts is a veteran of 40 plus years in the medical device industry, having worked for both OEMs and first-tier suppliers. He's managed operations, engineering, and QA/RA functions for both startup and legacy product manufacturers. Now, as a consultant for Omnex, Michael has shown proficiency in ISO 9001, 13485, 14001, 14971, 17025, 62304, and of course 21 CFR 820 and the EU MDRs. He has led course instruction and is certified lead auditor in all of these areas. During this webinar, if you do have any questions for the presenter, please enter them in the QA box, and Michael will get them answered to the best of his ability at the end of the webinar. This webinar is also being recorded, and someone from Omnex will reach out to you after the webinar with how to access the recording and all the slides. All right, Michael, you can start the webinar.
Okay, thank you. I sure appreciate that. Welcome to this presentation on FDA's changes to 21 CFR. As many of you may know, the 21 CFR 820 contains the FDA's requirements for quality management systems. These requirements have been around since the implementation of these laws back in 1978, presented initially in 76. They took effect lawfully in 78. FDA has now amended these regulations to align more closely with quality management system requirements by global regulatory authorities. The purpose of this presentation is to familiarize those who are attending with what those changes are and what they're going to mean to you. Now, since we also have people attending this that are very young, or I hate to use the word immature, but maybe don't have the experience in the medical device field as many of us veterans, let's talk about a little bit about what is 21 CFR 820. So Title 21 is the food and drug portion of the Code of Federal Regulations. Part 820 deals specifically with quality system regulations for medical devices. The QSR, or Part 820, includes quality management systems for medical devices and current good manufacturing practices. Other parts of the 820 part of CFR include things. I've just pulled a few out of here. That Part 11 talks about electronic records and signatures, 801 device labeling, 803 device reporting, 860 device classifications, and etc. There are about 200 parts that are currently being used, and there's a capability of having 1,000 different parts as part of Part 820. However, everything other than 820 is unaffected by this change. So we're only going to be talking about 820, the good manufacturing practice, or the quality management systems. Since 78, there's only been one major significant change back in 1996. However, these new changes are going to align with international standards and international requirements. 13485 is being incorporated by reference into CFR 820. So what does that mean? That means that Part 820 will reference ISO 13485. And with a few exceptions, the context of 13485 will not be incorporated into CFR 820. You're going to have to go on the web and download your own copy of 13485. We'll get into that in a minute. This will allow the FDA to globally harmonize without significantly rewriting the Federal Register. So they're referencing 13485. You're going to be held liable, or if you will, you need to comply with 13485, even though the entire text is not in 820. This is expected to promote worldwide consistency, and the expectation is timelier introduction for safe, effective, and high-quality devices for patients. The goals of the new QMS regulation, quality manufacturing system regulation, now called the QMSR, is to simplify, streamline the regulation, reduce burdens on manufacturers by aligning FDA's requirements with the globally harmonized quality management system requirements. 13485 is incorporated and keeps country-specific requirements at a minimum. It only adds requirements to keep alignment with the FD&C Act, Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. There will be a maintained level of assurance in a firm's quality management system and the ability to consistently manufacture safe and effective devices. So your quality management system is still your quality management system, talking about your processes, and it then should align with the 13485 requirements. The why change 21 CFR? A significant change to the market of medical devices in the US is the ISO conformance or compliance was previously not required. FDA had their own rules. 13485 had their own rules. 13485 is voluntary. FDA rules are not voluntary. So we're eliminating that confusion. Also, other countries, the European community, Canada, and other countries, in order to have CE mark or be able to market product in their countries, you have to have certification to 13485. If you're not certified, they won't even process your applications for market or your applications for the CE mark. Part 820 is now quality management system regulation, not QSRs. It's a quality management system regulation. The quality portion of this is also, we want to clarify this as a verb describing the management system, not as the noun for the department responsible for the system. In other words, this is more of a business management system dealing with the quality of the devices you're manufacturing. So don't expect quality now to have to be responsible for everything. Just a little clarification there. So let's talk about the structure of the new QMSRs. 820.1, the scope. The scope of this is separate from the 13485. It talks about the applicability, any conflicts with other requirements in the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, talks about foreign manufacturers, talks about exemptions or variances. It will be important for you to go through these specifically so that you do not get too much into thinking 1345 is the only rule that needs to be followed. 820.3 definitions. There are 10 definitions in 820 currently that are not in ISO 13485. So those 10 definitions will take precedence over anything in 13485. 820.7 is the incorporation by reference, talking about 9000, 2015, as well as 13485, 2016. 820.1 are requirements for a quality management system. This will link additional FDA requirements, such as documenting a quality management system, your device master records, your UDI, corrections, removals, tracking, and applicability of design and development activities, devices that sustain life, and enforcement. So make sure that you are referring to and very well versed in what these particular additional paragraphs are in addition to 13485. 820.15, it talks about clarification of concepts. The former 820.20 and 820.30 are now reserved. They did originally have information relating to, or that is now covered by 13485. Control of records, 820.35. Records of complaints, supplements, your record keeping activities, signatures, states, etc. This is in addition to the record requirements of 13485. It talks about records of servicing activities, UDI, and confidentiality. So that goes, these will go beyond 13485 requirements. 820.45 talks about device labeling and packaging controls, not covered by 13485. So the labeling and packaging inspection prior to release and operations established to prevent mix-up and inspections documented is still part of 820. So this is just a few areas that you're going to need to delve into and still be current with the 820 rather than just 13485. QMSR key considerations. These changes do not modify which establishments or products are subject to Part 820. It's still, the rules are still the same. Everything that was subject to Part 820 is still subject to 820. It does incorporate the full 2016 version of 13485. Future changes, by the way, to 13485 will be evaluated and determined for the impact and addressed through rulemaking. So the next time 13485 changes, and we expect that will be in 2025, there will be a period of time where the FDA will have to make rule changes addressing those changes. Proposes a transition period of 2 years after the publication of final rule. So in other words, the transition period will be 2 years. So effective February 2026, you will need to comply to 13485. Just for your information, 13485 2016 is available on the ANSI incorporated by reference portal. That is the address here, https ibrANSI.org. So you can look 1345 up without purchasing 1345. Be aware though that this portal will show the full text of 1345, but you will not be able to print it out or copy it. You'll just be able to reference it in on that portal. In order to have hard copies or utilize it, you're going to have to purchase it offline. FDA will retain inspectional authority. So what does that mean? That means FDA inspections will not result in certificates. The FDA is not getting into the registration or the registrar or certified body business. They will not issue certificates. Certificates of conformance does not exempt you from FDA inspections. So FDA inspections will still occur. I suspect they will not be the routine every 2-year inspections for compliance. I suspect it'll be more of a for cause inspection. So beware that the FDA is still alive and well and will still inspect your facilities. There's this slide is a summary of the rule differences. You notice the column on the left is the previous part 820. The middle portion is 1345, the requirements, and the far right column is the new 820 rule. Pretty much everything except for what's in red is covered by 1345, and those changes I reviewed in the previous slides for 820.35, 45, etc. So just make sure that you're aligning your business accordingly and not relying solely upon 1345, because there are some 820 requirements. So let's talk about the terms and definitions. Some the definitions that are not part of the new or part of 1345 that are still in 820. Blood and blood components are added and subject to subpart F, ID and traceability. The human tissues and cells, tissue-based products, are part of part 1271 of the Code of Federal Regulations. So that part has been pulled out. So make sure that if you have human cell or tissue-based products, that you're using 21 CFR part 1271 rather than part 820. Conflicts, if they arise between 1345 and part 820, the FDA regulations will override or control. This includes any conflicts or issues with foreign manufacturers. What the FDA covers, and if there's a disparity between what goes on in foreign countries, their regulations, if you're exporting product or devices, you need to still meet the FDA requirements, regulations. Any manufacturer may petition for an exemption or variance from some of the requirements, just like 520F always has been. So if you have exemptions that need to be made to 820, still file those exemptions. That's still required. Very much like 1345, you can exempt yourselves from some of those clauses. So that will still be required and will have to be in your quality manual. But make sure that any of these petitions that have been done in the past will still need to be done per the FDA requirements and this part 520F. Component. Any raw material, substance, piece, part, yada, yada, or part of a finished packaged and labeling device. So make sure that you're aware that components that are being brought, say, imported from foreign manufacturers that you're bringing in is still considered a component of medical device, and the registration of those facilities offshore, as well as the parts listing, may still occur, may need to still occur as they have been in the past. The Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act means the 21 USC 321 as amended. Design validation. Establishing that device specifications conform with user needs and intended uses. First tier suppliers to the OEMs, medical devices, need to be aware that design validation may not be able to be performed at your facility. That will need to be done with the users or the OEMs supplying devices to the users. So that design validation is for the entire device. Remember that. Product, components, process agents, in-process devices, also finished and return devices. So product can be many things, particularly software. So keep that in mind. Remanufacture. Any person that is modifying, remanufacturing, reconditioning, repackaging, restoring devices to their or significant changes to the finished devices, performance, safety specifications, or intended use. That's not covered by 13485. Implanted medical devices are those that, as defined in section 860.3 of 21 CFR. So make sure that that there are some differences in the implantable versus 13485 requirements. 13485 is anything over 30 days. There may be some nuances in various types of implantable medical devices that you'll need to take a look at 860.3. Manufacturer. Any person who designs, manufactures, fabricates, assembles a finished device, etc. Organization has the same meaning of manufacturers. Rework. Action taken on non-conforming product so it meets specified requirements in your medical device file or master record. Safety and performance means the has the same meaning as safety and effectiveness. There are some nuances between safe and effective and safety and performance. So make sure you're aware of those. This does not relieve a manufacturer from any obligation to implement controls or other measures that provide reasonable assurance of safety and effectiveness or efficacy. (820.10) requirements of a QMS. A manufacturer must document a quality management system requirements that complies with the requirements of 13485. It's not a conformance any longer, it's a compliance. Compliance is legal, conformance is voluntary. Comply as appropriate with other applicable regulatory requirements in this title include, but are not limited to, the following to fully comply with 13485. that talks about identification document systems to assign the UDI according to Part 830. Traceability is in accordance with Part 821. 823, Clause 823, notifying FDA of complaints must meet the reporting criteria of Part 803, and clauses 723, 823, and 833 for advisory notices need to be handled in accordance with 806 of the Code of Federal Regulations. So make sure that you're not missing out on those requirements. 82010, manufacturers of, or Part C of 82010, manufacturers of Class 2 and Class 3 and the Class 1 devices listed below in this little table must comply with the requirements of Clause 7.3 of Design and Development. So Class 1 devices are those automated with computer software and those listed in this table. And that really hasn't changed from the previous requirements of 820. Part D is devices that support or sustain life. If the device fails to perform when properly used, it is reasonable to expect significant injury compliance to Clause 7592. Enforcement, failure to comply with this part renders a device adulterated. Such a device, as well as any person responsible for the failure, is subject to regulatory action. So this compliance is still a requirement. So if you fail for enforcement, a device or a person, you can still be held liable, and regulatory action can be taken against you personally or for the company. Okay, 820.15, clarification of concepts. Manufacturers are subject to the following terms in 13485. Organization equals manufacturers as defined in the standard. Safety and performance equals safety and effectiveness, as we talked about earlier. Validation of process equals process validations. 820 and or dot 20 and 820.30 are reserved, as I mentioned before. Control of records. These are some things a little bit in addition to 1345 requirements. So in addition to 425, manufacturers must include the following information in certain records. Records of complaints. I'm not going to list all of these, but you need to make sure you have name, date, ID, and etc. for everything in addition to what's in 822. This includes FDA reported complaints per Part 803 of the Code of Federal Regulations. Complaints determined to be investigated and other complaints need to be investigated. So these complaint records need to be expanded just beyond what 822 is in 1345. In addition, Part B, records of servicing activities. In addition to 754 requirements, your servicing activities need to include your name, UDI, date of service, name of who serviced, the service performed, and any testing and inspection data. C is unique device identifiers. So in addition to these clauses in Clause 7, the UDI must be recorded per Part 830. and the Code of Federal Regulations. Confidentiality. Records deemed confidential may be marked to aid the FDA in determining what may be disclosed under 21 CFR Part 20. Now, keep in mind that freedom of information is alive and well, and anything that is inspected or subject to inspections, etc., with 13485 now is open to this freedom of information. So anything that you deem confidential may be marked such with the FDA per Part 820 of the CFR. So keep that in mind and remember to list those items that you do not want disclosed. 820.45 device labeling packaging. What do we have to do in addition to 13485? Part A, you need to ensure that labeling and packaging is examined for accuracy prior to release. So that labeling, that examination, that inspection needs to include UDI, expiration dates, storage instructions, handling instructions, and any additional process instructions need to be recorded. Release of labeling for use must be documented according to 425. Part C, ensure that labeling and packaging operations prevent mix-ups. That is implied in 13485, but it is a requirement in the 21 CFR. Results of inspections must be documented per 425. So basically, that's in a nutshell the changes that are in 21 CFR 820. Now, there's been a lot of questions during the comment period and during review, so we thought we would disclose or talk about some of these comments. We're going to talk only about a few. There were 83 comments published by the FDA prior to release of this new version. So we'll go through some of the comments that were made. Although regulations extend to components and parts of devices, FDA has chosen not to require components and parts to comply with this rulemaking. However, this does not preclude any contract between manufacturers, and ISO 13485 certification also makes this unnecessary. So the requirements and components and parts, they don't need to be certified. However, as an OEM, you may wish to make sure that your suppliers are certified for good practical reasons, of which you are all aware, that gives you indication of how good your suppliers are. So that the FDA is not requiring them to do that. That is an OEM responsibility. Third-party servicers and refurbishers are also outside the scope of this change. Anyone may access or read-only versions free of charge at this website that I disclosed earlier. It's like I mentioned, this read-only version is just that. It's read-only. You can reference it. You can pull it up on your different devices, but it will not be hard copy that would need to be purchased. For the definitions in Clause 3 of ISO 9000, that can be, they can be found under this address, this HTTPS ISO organization. However, be careful of those ISO definitions that make sure that you understand that the 13485 definitions and the definitions earlier in 820 that we reviewed will take precedence over anything in ISO 9000. FDA will not accept ISO 13485 certification in lieu of FDA inspections, since compliance is also required in areas such as 803, 806, 820, and 830, which we did review earlier, to name a few of the other requirements in the FD&C Act. So be aware that this certification is good and will limit the number of routine FDA inspections, but since compliance is also required in these other areas, there will be FDA inspections and you will be held accountable to make sure that you're complying with those requirements. I mentioned earlier that FDA inspections will not result in the issuance of certificates. And at this time, ISO 13485 certification is not a prerequisite for 510K approval, but it will help. So right now, if you're applying for 510K, you will not be required to show your certification for 13485. That may change in the future, but it is not current and will not be required in 2026. We have a few other changes that are expected, or particularly in 13485, and it looks like it may be happening in 2025. At least they're discussing it now. Could be the high-level structure of other ISO standards may be adopted with 13485. As you might be aware, the 13485 clauses range from 1 through 8. Other high-level structures in ISO go 1 through 10. So that may happen. Also, many of you may be aware that 9001 and other ISO standards have eliminated the preventive action clause. Why? Because all the clauses of 13485, all the clauses of all the ISO standards are preventive in nature. And if the requirements of preventive action, clause 853, are all integrated in the other clauses, then preventive action clause disappears. That may or may not happen. That's conjecture on my part, although discussions are occurring about this as we speak. ISO 14971 is currently going through an update to add machine learning AI, either as an annex or as a guidance document, as ISO 34971 2023. That may or may not happen. Well, it's going through a change, but we don't know whether it's going to be an annex or a separate document. That those changes have been submitted by AAMI to ANSI, and they are discussing it as we speak. We're a little bit early completing this discussion. That will leave us 20 minutes. If there are any questions, we'll be glad to take those. I'm looking up any Q&A thus far, we don't have any, well, I got 2 or 3 here that just came in. Is it required to be certified to ISO 13485 if I apply for 510K or IDE? No, that is currently not the case, and it is not expected to be a requirement at least through 2026 when this takes effect. But it will help if you submit your 510Ks and also submit a certification that you're qualified. It certainly will not hurt your case for your 510Ks or your IDEs. The second question, will certified bodies, registrars, when auditing for certification to 13485, be issuing 483s for the FDA or citations? No, that will occur as 13485 certifications and inspections, or not inspections, audits by your 13485 registrars will continue as is right now, and there is no relation to the compliance issues. That's still conforming and voluntary. So keep that in mind. There's no legal clause in any of the registrars any more than they ever have had. When will we be required to comply to 13485 by law? That is, as I stated earlier, February of 2026. Let's see, a couple more. What about MedSap? Will that program be affected? As far as I've heard up to this point, no. The MedSap is still as it is. It's a voluntary, and MedSap will continue as practiced. If you're currently part of the MedSap program, that will still occur, and you'll be held to the requirements of the other organizations, etc. So that that will not be affected as far as I'm concerned. Okay. Kathy, you answered that. Okay, will slides be emailed? If you have a request, you can request them. Yes, they can be emailed to you. So if you want more information on these, or this presentation is also recorded, so you can go to the Omnex website and listen to this in addition to being able to get the slides. I went through this relatively quickly. If there are no further questions, we will we'll close. Thank you very much for your participation, and good luck in the future. If you have questions about any of this happening or need help with your transition to 13485 or certification, need a gap analysis, help, that sort of thing, give us a call. We'll be more than happy to partner with you in these discussions or these gap analysis discoveries. Thank you very much.